welcome to chapter 3. We're going to start talking about inequalities. And you can see here that an inequality is a statement that two quantities are not equal, which is kind of backwards from what we've talked about all year so far. All year we've talked about equations where two things are set equal to each other. And now we're going to do all the same stuff, except for we're going to have two sides that may not necessarily be equal to each other. And we get to use the following symbols with inequalities. You've seen them before, and you've probably seen them or heard of them as the alligator mouth or something. You know, the alligator wants to eat more. So there's the greater than symbol, the less than symbol. I'll teach you how to read these. There's a special way that we can do it when we read it with variables, so I'll teach you that. But then if you go to the right, the green symbol is less than or equal to. So if there's a little line under it, that means it can also be equal to. Same with the purple one, greater than or equal to. And then the last symbol is just not equal to. So we'll talk about the difference between all those two. The solution of an inequality is any value of the variable that makes the inequality true. So that kind of leads us into this example. And I'll show you a specific way to come up with this very short. In the next couple days here, we'll talk about how to come up with a specific solution here, or the solution. But this just says to describe the solutions of 3 plus x is less than 9 in words. Well, what I would say then at this point is we know that 3 plus 6 equals 9. So anything less than 6 will make this statement true. So x must be less than 6. Because even if x was 5.9 or 5.9999, you know, it would be 8.9. So it would be less than 9 still. So that's how we can do that with words. All right. So an inequality like 3 plus x is less than 9 has too many solutions to list. So we can use a graph on a number line to show all the solutions. And here's what they've done, and we'll talk about this. When you're graphing, if it's strictly less than, which this one is, there is no line underneath it. Remember, we don't want to include 6, because if x was 6, then 9 would equal 9, but we're not saying that it can be equal to 9. We're saying it has to be strictly less than 9. So that's why this has an open circle on it. But we also know that all of the numbers less than 6 will make that statement true, and that's how we would show that on a graph. So you can plug in any of those and it'll work. Notice if we went to the other side and I chose 8 for x, which shouldn't work, it's not part of my solution. If I said 3 plus 8, I would get 11, but 11 is not less than 9. That's why it's not part of our solution. So that's how we graph these. And this is a chart that describes that. So they give you a little example. So if we look at the first one, this is x is less than 5. Less than 5 does not include 5, so there's an open circle on 5. X is greater than -1, so all things greater than -1, but not including -1. And then we look at x is less than or equal to 1/2. So the only difference is we actually include 1/2. We shade in that circle. And then lastly, x is greater than or equal to 0. We shade in that circle because we're including 0, and then anything greater, so we shade to the right. All right, so real quick, just to graph these two, b is less than -1.5. Here's how simple you can make your graph. Let's do -2, -1, and 0. We find -1.5, which is in between -1 and -2, and we say, okay, b can be anything less than -1.5. Go over here to example b, choose a number above it and a number below it. So we got 1, 2, 3. And we are saying that r is greater than or equal to, we're going to shade this in because we're including 2, greater than or equal to 2, meaning r can be anything 2 or larger. And we would shade that way. Alright, lastly, to write an inequality shown by the graph, we would just define a variable. So we would say, okay, x, and it looks like x, or whatever we're talking about, is greater than 4.5, but not equal to 4.5. So this would be our inequality. And lastly, if we use x again, x is less than or equal to -3, since this is shaded in. And that is a simple introduction to inequalities, graphing and writing them. And we'll work with this more in depth tomorrow, and obviously throughout the chapter. So that's all I've got for you today.